Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. Today's episode is extra special. We have produced this episode for the Women on Tap Festival, and it is called The Pub That Didn't Exist. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us.
Yeah, so this is an exciting episode today. Really exciting. I think this is the first that we've ever kind of done something like this before. So what is it, you might be asking? So we have a submission. This episode is a submission, as Joanne already said in our intro, to the Women on Tap Festival. So Women on Tap CIC, I think it's Community Interest Company. So they are sort of a group, for lack of a better way to sort of explain it, that's holds lots of, holds the Women on Tap Festival every year, does a lot of things to promote equality and tackling equality really in the beer space and the stigmas around beer, and what they do is really to try to empower women in the beer industry or with an interest in beer. So how this actually came about, I think it's worth actually saying how this came about, is I didn't know much about Women on Tap prior to this submission, and reading up on them and stuff is actually really interesting. So it was flagged to my attention by a friend, Donna. So hi, Donna.
Hi,
Thank
Donna.
you, Donna. And she was like, this would be perfect for you. What she meant to send me was a link to some roles that were going, and she was saying it might be really difficult for you to do this sort of with your current full-time job, but like it's worth looking at if you want to get into beer. Like there's a lot of good people that have come up through Women on Tap, and she sent me that link, but what she didn't realize is the link she actually sent was to a submission for pieces. They've had to go virtual this year for obvious reasons. I think we're all aware. We've had our discussions, virtual events and everything else like that. So they were looking for these submissions, and they had four, I think it is, themes where it was like equality and diversity, women in lockdown, what is a pub, and beer more than just a drink. So I was thinking, since we've been having these chats we've promoted before your group, the Women's Pint Club group, and told people they should join it. And I thought, this would be perfect. It fits into so much this topic that we're going to be discussing today, which I will get to in a minute. It does fit into all these different brackets. So I thought, why don't we focus it on our virtual pub sessions that we have on Women's Pint Club, and just the community that we've built in a time where the pub sort of, not that it doesn't exist, but it ground to a halt all one day, and we had to adjust with it. And I think we built a community around it where some people felt like they were missing that from their lives. So I wrote this submission. We got selected as one of a few really interesting pieces. So it's an honor, I think, definitely, for us to have this. I mean, I'm really I feel it's a huge honor. Thank you so much for selecting us for this. We hope this episode lives up to expectations. We're a bit tired today. We're not on the beers. I'm on the coffee.
On the water.
We recorded last night on the beer mile. It was a late night. It was a long late night. And yeah, so that's where we went through. So before we sort of get into the actual breakdown of what we've done, this is all centered around your Women's Pint Club. So Jo, do you want to sort of tell us about how you formed Women's Pint Club and how it's sort of expanded out to where it is now? Because I don't think we've ever gone into detail about it before.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned it, but so back in 2019, I'd started my beer Instagram, A Woman's Brew, probably I think Christmas of 2018, and then I'd been doing it for about a year, and I'd been to festivals and I'd done all of this stuff. And like down in Kent, we've got all your traditional real ale stuff. There's a bit of craft, there's more coming now. But I would go to these events, and as a woman, people were just, you'd get you get ignored at the bar, and you try and talk to people about beer, and they'd look at you like you're a crazy person because, you know, how can a woman know about beer? And I was just like, there must be other women that drink beer. Like I see the odd woman, you know, there must be a group of us that would like to do this more, but don't feel that they can go do it on their own, or, you know, need a little bit of support to get out there and get into the pubs and the bars. What can I do about that? So I'd seen Julie O'Grady's Ladies That Beer up in Liverpool, and I was like, God, and I'd looked around to see if there was anything like that down here, and there wasn't. So I was just like, well, what could I start it? And so, you know, I messaged Julie and was just like, how did you start that? Like, what tips can you give me to start it? And her advice was, just do it. Like, just put it out there. Just get, like, you know, start a Facebook group, start some way of communicating with people and say, this is what we're doing. We're going to meet at this place at this time. Turn up. So I went on Meetup, and I set up Women's Pint Club. I think at the time it was just called like Women's Beer Group. And
Fair.
You know, I was just like, Women's Beer Group, we're going to meet at, and I had a quick message to a few bars and was just like if I bring like a group of, I don't know how many it's going to be, if I just say a group of women are going to meet up here, is that cool? And the Pegasus Tap room, it's like a bar in Gin Palace.
Oh, I like that, a palace,
right? Gin Palace. I was like, you know, this is, and they've got some great craft beer on all the time. I was like, if I had just have these women turn up here, is that cool? And they were like, yeah, of course. So put it out there on Meetup. I invited a couple of my personal friends who I knew drank beer, just so I knew that there'd be someone other than me there, and just put it out there and was just like, if you want to drink beer, we're going to be a group of women getting together to drink beer. Come join us. Come join us. That's literally my catchphrase. Come join us. And they did. And my friend Louise, who we record with later on in this episode, was one of the first people to turn up. A couple of people from work came. Like, we ended up with like a group of about 8 of us, I think, like 7 or 8 of us. And it was all just people that had just seen it on Meetup and went, you know what, I'm going to go. And like, there was one lady who was just, because it was in Canterbury, so there was the universities and stuff. There was one lady who's over from Norway, I think, and she was just like, oh, I'm working on my degree here, and I don't really know anybody, and I like beer, so I thought I'd come and chat to some people. And it was a really lovely, diverse group of women. And then we just carried on meeting. Like, I think the most we've had was 12 women came at one point, and like, we kind of fluctuated. Like, sometimes people can't make it, and we'd like, but there's a little core group of us that always meet up. Then Lou came up with me to the International Women's Collaboration Brew Day at Wildcard in March 2020, like right at the beginning of March, and we'd just done that. And then lockdown happened, and we were like, oh, we can't do any of our regular meetups. What are we going to do? So we started doing Zoom meetups, but I think people were finding that difficult. So it ended up just being about 3 of us meeting up on Zoom. So then it was just kind of like a friends group, just having a Zoom and a beer on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah. And then I met you and a couple of and some other women, like in the beer groups, because then we kind of, you're talking to people about beer transferred to online. So I joined some more Facebook beer groups and talked to some people on Instagram, and I was just like, do you know what, I feel like we need to expand this out more than just the local area group. And I kind of wanted it to be that way, but I'd not really had the opportunity to advertise it to more people, or people weren't joining groups like that at the time because they could go to the pub and meet people. Yeah. So I put it out there on Craft Beer UK, which is the beer group that we met in, and quite a few people joined. And then I'd met Carrie Oakley through the Brewdog podcast. I just met her because she commented on lots of things, and then one day we shared recipes and that was it. Then it was just like, okay, well we're friends now. I was like, okay, cool. Like, I've literally just seen that she'd commented on some Brewdog stuff, and then that's how we ended up chatting.
Hearing her talk about it was just really funny. Like, I just kept seeing you places, and I kept virtually seeing you places in like the Brewdog pub and the virtual pub and stuff. And then she's just like, I just kept finding you, just messaging her and like we just were friends. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you set your mind to it. You're like, we're going to be friends.
Yeah.
And then you just made it happen.
Yeah, made it happen. And then, so I was like, what other people do I know online that are women that like beer? Carrie's one of those people. Carrie was then instrumental in inviting loads of American ladies who, like, now we've got friends, and we had a lovely chat with our American members, which you'll get to hear. And like that, it was really interesting to me how they all ended up joining because I got Carrie to join. And then that spread out further.
It was like, how did you find about it? And everyone's like, well, Carrie. And I think my favorite part about that is, Brett, her partner is
right.
a
So I
News
do
podcast with you.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
do
not
the
even that she got invited from you.
No, I do the Brewdog News podcast with Doug. I knew of Brett, but hadn't actually spoken to her or chatted with her or anything. And then so Carrie got her to join, and now I'm more friends with Brett because I probably wouldn't have chatted to her the way that I do now if she hadn't have joined Women's Pint Club. So, but I think I'm really proud that I was really proud of Women's Pint Club as a group that we'd managed to get together. And there are women in that group who are local to me now, who are my friends, who wouldn't have been if I hadn't have started Women's Pint Club. And we've supported each other through various different things. And then when we opened it up and we now have all these, there are women now, there's you, there's, Lisa, we'll give shout outs to Lisa and Haley and our other Lisa, and to the American ladies, to Pam, to Brett, Carrie, Cheryl, like throw in all of those, like we wouldn't be friends if it hadn't been for this space that and I don't like saying me because I feel because we did it all together.
No, but it's
I started that.
You started it because I remember like when we first met.
Rachel,
we were chatting. There's so I feel like we're gonna get like, don't at us because we're tired. It was a long night. I'm trying to just think. There's so many people that we are just a lot of them you're going to hear about in the next bit. So but I remember when we first started chatting as well, and I was saying and you were telling me about Women's Pint Club, and I was like, I'm so jealous because I wish I had something like that local to me so that I could meet women that also drink beer around me, and being like, oh, I wish I was nearby to you guys, and say, I've got Helen who's up in Leeds, and Helen and Donna up in Leeds, and it's like, oh, it's so frustrating because I've made all these. The great thing about lockdown is it made it so that I had to go to this virtual space. And that was great because I got to meet so many people I would have literally never have met. And I've experienced things I probably wouldn't have if I, hadn't gone to these beer groups because of lockdown and, found this community. Yeah. But the frustrating thing is then it was everyone lives. All these people that I get along with so well, they all live so far away that it's not just a quick, you're like a 2-hour drive. That's not so bad. But when it comes to it being a hobby of drinking, it's not like I can just nip over to yours, have some drinks and get home. It would be really difficult to do that. So it's just meeting all these amazing people in this community. And I just remember mentioning to you oh, I'm really jealous of it. And then you're like, so you could just join if you want to.
Just join.
And I was like, okay.
I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about opening it up to other people. So why don't you just join? Let's just invite other people. And we did. And so that pub space that was no longer available to us, we created online. We created the pub that didn't exist. And in that space, in this episode today, you are going to hear about, from not just from us, but from the other women that I really want to showcase their voices as well, their experiences throughout this situation, and how their thoughts on the pub, the physical pub, and on our virtual pubs and that space, and just see what that means to them. And we as women, often we don't people don't think that the pub is for us, but we've made it for us, and we want to share those people's thoughts with you in this episode today.
Yeah, I think it's really quite crucial as well to say that it's, we're highlighting this as, the virtual part. I think as I said at the beginning, it kind of touched on all those things. It's diversity because we have people that identify in all different types of ways, and they all across the spectrum. It's really, really great. We met over beer, but it's become so much more than beer. So it's beer more than just more than just a drink. You know, the obvious, what is a pub? I mean, for me, I think I've said this in the recording as well, whether or not it makes it, I don't know, but for me, it's not just the Zoom chats, it's the Facebook pages, it's the side Discord chats that we have when we watch, you know, virtual events. It's the chat that we just have together, as well as the Zoom chats. Like it's across social media. It's the Instagram. It's all of that.
It's the community.
It's the community that we have built.
A couple of weeks ago, I sat there to Gordon and I went to my husband. I went, I did that. I was just like, oh my God, I did that.
Yeah,
it made me really
great.
happy.
And I think that's it. Like there was people that I think I spoke to on Instagram, and then I was like, you know, talking about the Women's Pint Club, and they were like, what's that? And I was like, well, join the Facebook group. So it's like, you know, you started this community, and then we've all just sort of made more people get on board, and it's just become this across platform community of people, of female identifying people that all enjoy drinking beer and coming together over beer, and that to me is that. And then obviously the obvious one about, you know, women in lockdown. I mean, that it touches that one as well, because we all did this over lockdown. I mean, it's just been, I think for me, it's been so amazing, because it's brought me a community that I didn't, even on those beer pages, it's brought me a community that I didn't have on those pages. Like we're all talking about beer on those pages and everything else, and like you do interact with other women on those pages, and it's not that I'm saying I can only interact with women when it comes to beer, but I always just found that a safer space where I felt like I could sound off and not be judged for it, or have somebody say, well, I've never seen that happen, therefore it doesn't, that must not happen, or like try to invalidate your experience at all. Like it was just a space that I felt I could go and I could say whatever, and I just wouldn't be judged. Whereas a lot of the Facebook groups, I mean, it's not,
and we talk
just men or anything like that. It's the other groups, I didn't feel that I could just do that.
And we talk about more than beer. Like that's what gets us started, but we have discussed our problems and our issues and the funny things we've seen that week. You know, and I think we always try and make it really inclusive. Like there are a couple of in jokes that you may hear throughout this episode. Whenever we've got a new person,
whatever you're allowed
whatever I'm allowed to leave in. But we always make sure that people were like, oh, you're a new person. We're going to tell you what that means. Like, we're not having any of this. Oh, ha ha ha. This is our secret joke. You're going to know why we think that's why a pie sandwich is really funny.
Oh God, double carbs.
You'll eat mash. You would eat a sausage and mash sandwich.
Yeah, it's a bit different though, isn't it?
It's still double carbs.
It's a different kind of double carb. Whatever. But yeah, I think you're right. Like we explain the in jokes. We don't want anyone to feel like an outsider. And I think I mentioned it at one point that we recorded as well, that, you know, normally on these Zoom chats, you can't have that same experience that you can get in a pub where you can have small like mini chats and stuff. But I found that actually our group has been able to really do that and to have the side chats. Like you can't people watch. That's the one thing that you can't really replicate in the virtual space. But even having the side chats, like, you know, people will be having a conversation one way and then other people will be having a conversation via the chat function, and it really, like, it's the only space that I found that I've ever been able to have that experience.
And because we don't care, like we're like, oh, if those two are having a little conversation over here, we're having our little conversation over there, so and so are chatting in the chat, you know, and then someone will be like, you're talking about that, I'm going to jump in with you, and it doesn't, like, we're not like, you need to come back and listen to what this person's saying. Like we're quite happy for it to be
organized chaos.
Organized chaos. That should be like the strap line for this, like the pub that didn't exist. Organized chaos.
Such a big important thing, especially with everything that's like unfolded over the last few weeks and everything. It's been such a safe and comfortable space for everybody to be able to have conversations that maybe you just don't feel comfortable having in a wider a wider space where there's more people involved, and it's just, we've created this community that you started has just been, it's meant a lot to me for sure, and I'm sure it's meant a lot to other people as well. And I think we might sort of talk about the physical pub maybe a lot more at some points than we do the virtual side of things, but I think that's because it is so much more than just the Zoom chat, this pub that we've created. I've got a question for you, actually. Would you consider having it go back to a local only club now that you've had it open up to the wider community? Because I can't imagine that.
I can't do that. Like, I can't imagine going, okay, right, well, we're only going to meet up locally. Like, sorry, Pam, sorry, Brett and Carrie and Cheryl, like, we're not going to talk to you anymore, or you can only post in the group. Like, we've definitely talked about how we're going to do meetups. We can do meetups around the country. You know, I will give Women's Pint Club as a name to other places if other people want to get into little groups as well. We can do little chapters around the country. In America, I think there needs to be a Women's Pint Club USA, don't you think?
Oh, definitely.
And then we will balance. I think we do need to balance it with sometimes, like, you know, maybe every other month we'll do a virtual meetup. But virtual events aren't going away, and so I think we can be blended.
I think I can certainly speak for myself, and I think I can speak for you as well when I say that we have 100% made friends for life. Like, I can't imagine.
Definitely.
Like, I wouldn't have known most of these people, probably all of these people, had I not joined this group, or, you know, had it not been for COVID. But I can't imagine my life without them now.
Yeah,
because it's just weird.
Yeah,
like, it was weird. It was weird going out recording and like not having Lisa and Hayley there. Like, it just felt like it felt weird, like having these conversations, and like you just wanted to. The way we broke it down, we had a conversation with the Americans, a few of the Americans separately, because we wanted their experience, we know, is going to be vastly different to our experience of COVID and everything else like that. So we wanted to capture that. We had a separate conversation with Rachel, because she wanted to be involved and she couldn't come to London. We had a conversation with Charlotte, Louise, myself, and you. And that was really good, because those are the people that could go out. I think originally we wanted to get everybody together, but the problem is not everybody could.
The logistics of it, what we are able to do under the current circumstances, still, we're not yet at that point where we can all just get together again in a pub. So we did brew on International Women's Collaboration Brew Day. I brewed for everyone a jam donut stout. That they selected the flavors and the ingredients and the name of, which is Beer Is Our Jam. But we're going to save that until more of us can get together, and so we can drink it all together. And I think that is going to be a really special day when we get to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And so it felt weird having everyone broken down into these smaller groups, because it was like, you're so used to having the organized chaos of everyone together and shouting over and everything else. And I was like, oh my God, like, these are smaller groups. Like, it was good, but it felt so weird to like not have everybody together. And so I just can't imagine having a space where like we just don't do that anymore. But yeah, I think, well done, Jo. Thank you for the community you've built. Yes.
I still don't feel like it was me. I feel like it was a collaborative effort, but I'm glad that I started it.
You definitely at a minimum, you started it, and you got the ball really rolling.
Yeah. I saw a space and I filled it. I built our table so that we could get to it. I was like, we need our own table. Here it is. We're now going to go off, and I'm going to cut in. We're going to talk to our American ladies. Then we're going to talk to we're going to do another virtual chat with Rachel, and then you'll hear our actual in-person get together on the Beer Mile. And we hope that you enjoy it.
Yes.
So Pam said that she's drinking her beer. But tell us what your beer is, because I think we may have, throughout this situation, right, and I think we actually peer pressured you into start brewing as part of this process. I think that's important to start, like, that we were just like, go on, Pam, do some brewing.
So I wouldn't call it peer pressure.
Okay,
I would call it inspiration. Inspired.
I like that. We inspired you to start brewing. Yeah, that's way better. That's much better.
So as many of you know, my husband has been brewing for, it's 12 years now, home brewing, and he's done the box kits, and then he started doing his own, and it's a whole process. But meeting you ladies and being part of our virtual pub, it was nice to know that like other women were able to were brewing and doing home brews. So I was like, you know what, I could totally do that. And my husband supported me and was like, yes, I have all these extra hops laying around and from our other beers, and go ahead, you can just kind of do whatever, a hodgepodge, whatever you want to make, like a pale ale. Mm-hmm. So from all of that, at one of our virtual pub things, we were just like, yeah, we're gonna come up with this, and it went from like a junk drawer,
and then I thought you said
the junk, and then
I thought you said drunk drawer, and you were like, well, that works as well.
That is amazing. Yep. Yes. And so and then it had a couple of other names, but in the end, it is Drunk Drawer Pale Ale, which is a nice sessionable pale ale, and it comes in at about 4%. So it's very light and tasty and very mild.
And we all come to yours and drink it.
We all need to come over to yours and drink it. Are you going to brew again?
Yes.
Yes. See, this is the power of women getting together in the pub, in a virtual pub. We inspire each other and we encourage each other. And this is exactly why we got this group together.
I'm quite interested. So I think a lot of you are probably members of the Women's Pint Club group or knew each other before before Joanne opened it up to sort of the wider UK base and I came in. So I'm just really interested to hear how if you guys can each take a turn saying how you guys found Women's Pint Club. I think that would be quite interesting because obviously given you're an ocean away, how did you guys stumble upon Women's Pint Club, a UK based pint group? Kerry, go first.
So I invited you.
Yeah. Joe's responsible for me. Yeah. And I think I'm responsible for at least Brett and PM, because I'm sitting there going, okay, Joe invited me, and I'm like, wait, I don't want to be the only US person here.
I think there were a lot of people that have been added by Carrie.
Which is brilliant, absolutely because then it just becomes an even bigger, more diverse group of people, which is great.
Interesting. That's the one thing I love about social media, and I love about virtual things like this.
So basically, Joe, you invited Carrie, and then Carrie, you saying Brett, you were invited by Carrie, and Pam was invited by Carrie.
Yep, I got the invitation from Carrie, and I recognized Joanne's name. Doug, my partner, is on the podcast, and so he knows everybody. So I thought, well, this will be fun, and I joined the first time and was just very, very comfortable, very easy, good conversation. And, honestly, we're talking about retiring in the UK. So I'm loving the opportunity to meet more people over there and find out more about your culture and how your lives are. And so for me, it's been a wonderful experience. I haven't joined often, but I really enjoy it when I do.
So Cheryl, how did you find it? So obviously, Pam, you got invited by Carrie. Cheryl, how did you find out about the group?
Yeah, so I had no clue what was going on, but Pam and I are both occupational therapists, and we both belong to the Central Ohio Board of the Ohio OT Association, and we love beer. And so we're always talking about beer. And one day she said, I need to invite you to join the Women's Pint Club. And I'm like, sure. So when I got on that time and Pam hadn't joined because she was going to be late, it was a little, I don't want to say intimidating, but I just didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And right away, y'all were just so awesome. I mean, got on, everybody's like, hey, and just brought me right in. And I think, when we're talking about like a regular, when we go to pubs or bars and things here, people are in their own groups and they don't necessarily open up. And even if you are a new person, you're not always sitting with everyone. You're kind of sitting out to the side. And so here, you're right in the mix of it. It's wonderful. And I had so much fun. And my husband was just sitting here laughing the whole time. He's like, you don't even know those people, but you're talking to them. And I absolutely loved it. So yeah, I kind of got in on the way back end, but now I'm right in front. So thank you.
Yay. No, it was
I know Cheryl texted me. I was like, I'm on my way up. She's like, these people are great. I was like, I knew you would love them. They're
love
awesome.
it.
And I think what's
so
great is
good.
like,
That's
Pam,
awesome.
you are such a legend, Pam, because you'll be like texting like, I'm on my way home from work. Like, I'll be there as soon as I can.
Promise. And then
Pam's
jump
on the way.
immediately. It's like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the TV show in the 80s, Cheers. I know in the US we have, but it's like when he would walk in the bar and be like, no. I always feel like that when I come in.
Yeah, it was like
Pam comes in the group and it's Pam.
Lisa has her own welcome.
Yeah. I love it. I love that we've got everyone and we're accommodating to everyone and
very eclectic.
Yeah, and we can just share it. And that it was during that time we managed to meet new people and make friendships. And I think these friendships are going to last. Like, what do you think about this?
I would have to say absolutely. Yes. You know, we love the people we have met. And I can't wait to come back and meet more of these folks I've met virtually. I just think it's going to be a lifelong friendship with a lot of you guys. Absolutely.
She's right, because it's one of those things that because a lot of this kind of stuff, like that's how Wes and I mean, even with like, I've never met Cheryl before, but I knew Pam and Brett. I'm in Pennsylvania, Brett's in Wisconsin, Pam and Cheryl are in Ohio. That's the one thing about the lockdown time. There's been so many different rules over the whole time. We can't even go see each other even in our own states. It's like that thing. Yeah. I've been to Columbus Brewdog once, and that was August of last year. And so therefore, and I haven't been back since. Yes, Pennsylvania's have leaned or lessened a lot of their things, and just in the past couple of weeks, they've lessened mask restriction. They've lessened. I mean, it's in all United States in general has lessened a lot of things. So therefore, yeah, we can keep going. But it's for me, like today is my fully vaccinated day. I've gotten both shots and I'm 2 weeks past it. So I'm like, yay, that's great. And I feel great because of that. I feel a lot more comfortable trying to go back to places. And before I did too, but at the same time, it was only those times when I went, okay, do I know the people? Do I know the situation? Do I know the environment? Do I know all that? And it's like so many questions that I went, I overthink in general in life, but COVID times made me think over that. And sometimes with these virtual things, it made me overthink too, because I remember my very first time on one of the calls was one of those times when I knew Joe and I forget that Pam wasn't on yet. Pam came after us. I had another Zoom call later that night, like at the same time, they got double booked. And I'm like, okay, I can start with this for a little bit and had to go. And ironically, Haley was on the entire time. We did for the forum, Haley and I have communicated to forum. I've never seen what Haley looks like. Didn't know anything about that. We even bought her a Pride t-shirt in the US and brought it over with us in 2019 and left it at the Leeds bar, or not the Leeds bar, at York bar for her. It's all that kind of stuff. We did a whole bunch of that. And later that day, I left. She was on the screen, didn't even realize it was her. Till later she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. And I'm like, I had to re-look at the picture and go, oh my word. And then like the next time we did it, it took me to the next time and go, oh yeah, hi, I'm sorry. I'll now formally say hello to you. I'm sorry. But it was one of those moments where it's like, didn't have a name on the thing, didn't associate the name in the face and went, but because of the virtual thing, I now can actually have a chance to actually have communications with people I wouldn't have done just instead of just an online thing. Like in the forum, you have online chats and it's all like, it's almost like the texting things, but now with the faces and then actual verbalization, it's a lot nicer because then you can actually almost have a conversation with people, almost feel like you're right there in their room with them and right in person. So that's a nice thing to have this.
And I think, when I joined the last time, people are in this group in particular are so open and fun. We had our conversations just ran the gamut. I feel like there, people shared things that I don't know that they would normally share with people they don't know really well. So when it goes back to being friends, I do feel like, there are people I care. And I think when we got off last time, there were stuff happening. I think somebody was going back to work and I still don't know everybody's names yet, but I know people. So, yeah. But, just being able to support one another in ways that we, they never might've felt that support from other people. So
that's so brilliant, because I think that
so
the concern you always have is when somebody says, oh, I'm going to invite a friend, and you go, okay, like, yeah, invite your friend, that's great, the more the merrier. And then you have this feeling, and Joe, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I felt as well, of like, somebody's coming and like, oh, this is really good. And then I'm like, oh, we have to make sure that we explain inside jokes. We have to make sure, like, because you don't want someone to feel left out. So then all of a sudden someone new joins, and then you get into like what rubber ducking is, what all these other things are, because you're like, And then everyone's heard that story about 5 times, but you're like, we need to make sure this new person hears it, because we don't want the new person to feel overwhelmed and confused. And I think we really hope that people, I mean, it's not my group, I'm saying it like we, as in it's my group, it's not my group, but it's Joe's group ultimately. But I think, like, I'm always concerned when I join about making sure everybody understands the inside jokes that are there, even if they're new to it, and I hope it lands in that way where someone new joins and we can go, oh, here's the joke that someone's just made, this is what it means, so they can feel included as well.
You need to have the virtual FAQ where you've
got
the instead of having it written out, you just have the video clip.
I'll just pop it up.
It will be like, if anybody ever asks about the dig, here's a list of things that could potentially come up.
This is what pampas grass means, and this is what pie sandwich means.
Yeah, here's what a Wigan kebab is.
Wigan kebab.
Yeah, all the inside jokes that make me. I wasn't even there for the pampas grass story, and I keep hearing it all the time, and it makes me laugh because in our neighborhood we have a walk. I walk in the neighborhood, but we live in a cemetery. There's pampas grass right outside the cemetery, little thing, and I'm like, every time I walk by, I'm going. I try not to giggle, but I'm going, yep, giggles as it happens.
I mean, that is one. If you're going to be in a cemetery, that's the one to go. That's right.
Yeah.
But sometimes it was one of those things. And I think that's the thing that's neat about virtual things. It gives you an opportunity that even after, when you get a chance to go back, you can still also keep connections with people that you didn't have a chance to be there connections before. I mean, there's so many times for me, in-person things, it takes a little longer even in person to get back comfortable. I mean, even now it's going to be like, we're having USAGM this year. That's making me go, okay, I'm excited. And also going, oh, this is going to be weird. What the heck is this going to look like? What's it going to be?
Yeah.
What's that whole experience going to be like? I mean, there's so much things like that. That's so much like unknown of, oh, is it going to be just like it used to be? I mean, they just did the CDC thing, said that anybody who's fully vaccinated now doesn't have to wear a mask inside now. And but at the same time, we just got in Pennsylvania, we just got a thing from all the breweries that said, okay, the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board hasn't given us that approval yet. So therefore you still need to wear your mask in the bars. And people are like, some of the people are like, I don't give a crap. I'm going to just do whatever I want to. But it's like, it's that we're at the transition time right now with the whole that, and the transitions are even worse.
I think that's one of the biggest things that's different about the whole US experience of the pandemic compared to you guys is that, we have 50 states and every state has their own rules. And within each state, there are individual cities and counties that have different rules from one another. And our alcohol laws are nuts over here anyway, just absolutely nuts. So Wisconsin is heavily controlled by the Liquor Control Board. They're very Republican. We want people drinking. We have the laxest drunk driving laws in the US because of that, because they want everyone out drinking all the time. And it's appalling, quite honestly. But, we have a tremendous amount of alcohol consumption in this state. And so the bars never closed down. They never did. It was, you can still go and you should probably wear a mask. And here in Dane County, where I live, Dane County said you absolutely need to wear a mask. And there were a tremendous number of bars that said, screw that. And I've been seeing people for a year and a half already, at least a year, posting videos online from local bars that are having concerts with 300 people in this tight space. And we all, go, my God, I can't believe they're doing this. All these people are going to die. But it never got shut down here. For instance, we have a local bar here in town where we used to go and have a drink and get a burger quite regularly. And when the pandemic first started, we were like, we're just going to order our food and carry it out. Because we want to support them and keep them in business and all that good stuff. But, we don't want to be inside the bar anymore. And at one point I went to pick up some food and they weren't bringing it out to cars anymore. You had to go inside the building to get the food. And when I went to pick it up, the entire bar was lined with people who were not wearing masks. The bartender had no mask. The cook in the kitchen had no mask. And I was like, I'm not ordering any food from these people anymore. So we have not been back to that bar probably for 9 months. I've given them no money because they weren't taking it seriously enough for me. And I considered turning them into the county because they were violating our county rule. I never did turn them in because they're good people. I know them. But I just wasn't comfortable giving them money anymore. I may never go back to that bar again because it changed my opinion of them. That said, twice during the past year, Doug and I got in the car and drove 7 hours to Columbus, Ohio, stopping in Indianapolis along the way to go to the Brewdog bars because of the sense of family, because we know and trust the company, because we wanted to reconnect with people that we were missing in an environment that we felt was relatively safe. And, you know, you wear your mask and you go in and you sit down at your table and you keep your mask on until they bring you your beer, and then you take it off and you sip at your beer and then put your mask back on while you continue to sit there. And it felt, I mean, it made me nervous, but at the same time, I was like, I'm taking a conscious chance. I am aware of the risk. I am doing what I can. I get up to go to the bathroom. I put my mask on, go to the bathroom, wash my hands, sanitize like crazy, make sure I'm not sitting too close to anybody. And it was okay to do that. I did not have that sense of ease at any of the local bars. Madison's a big college town. Most of the local bars have lunatic college students who can't follow rules to save their lives. So for me, I think there were only 4 bars we visited in the last year, 4 pubs, if you can call Brewdog Columbus a pub, which I don't think you can. But 4 different places that we went to during the pandemic. And one was the local one that I said no more. 2 were Brewdog bars. And it's you guys had the clarity of everything's shut down. We never had clarity here in Wisconsin. I don't know about the other states, but we didn't here. It was just make your own decision, do what you feel was safe. And it was very hard to navigate.
See, Pennsylvania was a little bit more lockdown than that. We had back in March of last year, we were locked down for an entire month where we shouldn't have gone anywhere, like literally. And since March of last year till about probably March of this year, almost for an entire year, we had restrictions. Like they're starting to still slowly reduce restrictions. I mean, locally for ours, our Allegheny Health Department, actually, they shut down bars that actually were not doing the restrictions. They literally were policing it in a good way. For us, like we've been to a couple places, but most of the time before like March of this year was the first time we were actually inside a building. And that's been a weird experience. Like we've not been inside because it's like if we go to a place, we'll go outside, sit outside where it's all clean, fresh air, this kind of stuff. You can have a drink. Every state is different, like Brett said. And it's like so much different to go, okay, like if I drive, because Pittsburgh is so close to Ohio, if I drive to Ohio, I can get different restrictions. You get different laws. It says people need to start making our own decisions, but at the same time, it's also harder as 50 individual states to see what each is going to be like, and what even in counties, like even one half of Pennsylvania is different than the other half of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So when it first initially happened, everything shut down back a year ago in March, and like all bars, all restaurants, like the governor just shut everything down. And we were just like, oh my gosh, schools and everything. So originally then like a lot of the local breweries around us got creative, and they're like, well, we'll just keep our employees, we'll do delivery free. If you order so much, free online delivery, we'll deliver to your house if you're within the Columbus area. So I told Jared, I said, I feel like we've single-handedly kept the local microbreweries in business, because joke, at least in 1 week, we had 3 different breweries delivered to our house. I took pictures, put it in like our COVID scrapbook. But so that was nice that we felt like we were still supporting them, and they were able to keep their employees still employed. But then when they started opening back up with like, okay, restaurants can be open, limited seating, spacing, you have to wear masks. A lot of the breweries did that. We still, because we have younger kids, and we're like, no, we just don't feel comfortable doing that. And then over winter, my husband and I had a chance to have a date night, and we went into a bar, Saucy. I don't know if you're familiar with some of those. It was a bar. It's closer to campus, the Ohio State University campus, and it was packed. packed, and nobody was wearing a mask. I mean, the servers were, and like, I was just like, nobody's 6 feet away. There's no partitions. There's nothing. And it just felt really uncomfortable. And I was like, we're not going back there.
I think, to your point, Pam, I think the breweries in the area did a much better job than the bars did.
Correct.
The breweries all kept everybody, they opened up outside seating. The other thing that was really cool is a lot of our communities have something called Dora now, which is downtown
outside refreshment area.
Yeah. And so you can get a beer and take it and walk outside.
Okay.
And not have to be inside. And so many times you'd have to go in to get the beer, but we'd go in, get our beer and go outside. And we were outside in 30-degree weather and it didn't matter. We're drinking our beer.
Winter
beer. It doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. And
zero C. Zero C.
Yeah.
So that's when you need to have a few beers, and then it's
Get your beer jacket.
Get your
on.
beer. We call it the beer jacket in the
Beer
UK.
jacket.
I don't know if you call it that over there.
But then also I think that on the regular we take beers outside. We don't have door zones. We've got signs up that says please don't drink on the streets, and we're like, all right, love, it's all good.
About 2 months ago, you were not allowed to order. You had to order your alcohol at the same time as the food. And one brewery, the Voodoo that we're going to this afternoon, literally they used to serve food during the normal thing. They had a normal kitchen, but during COVID they lost their employees, and so they were there like, okay, what are we gonna do? You can do a food truck. So some of the places would do food trucks. They decided, no, we're not doing food trucks. Their creative way was, okay, they went to the store and bought boxes of little mini boxes of cereal and said, okay, you buy one box of cereal and that's a substantial meal. It's your breakfast. So there you go. For $1, you get a box of cereal and then you can drink the alcohol sitting here at the thing. I'm like, okay,
Oh my God.
yes, it fits the bill, but it's another one of those things that they had to be creative to go, how do we survive this? How do we do this? And
I don't,
it's crazy sometimes.
yeah, Carrie, I don't know if that happened with you, but we had a toilet paper shortage here when COVID.
Yep. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So what a lot of the breweries would do is if you would order beer, they'd throw in a roll of toilet paper.
Oh yeah.
And it was awesome. I'm like, I'm going to there because this
Brilliant.
fridge is putting toilet paper in. This is it.
Oh,
And
screw
commercial brand,
Costco.
but I'm taking it.
That's
Like
awesome.
Brewdog did that with the hotel in Canal. They would give
Until
away
they didn't have a
their-
hotel. Yep.
yeah.
That's
That is
amazing.
amazing because
Yeah.
the amount of times that I went to Costco, like to the point that I wasn't doing what other people were doing, which was like stocking up on like I wasn't trying to hoard toilet paper. I was like, genuinely, it's an unfortunate time where
just need
this
toilet
is my
paper.
normal
Yeah.
Costco
Yeah.
trip. I'd normally be buying the jumbo pack of Costco, and now everybody's out there buying it. I mean, if you had told me my local breweries would be giving away toilet paper,
Yep.
that's even better because I could justify the purchases even
Yes,
more because I'd be like, we're getting toilet paper. I need to have this on a 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Like,
Exactly. And I don't want to get deep down into the politics here at all, but in the Midwest and the flyover country, on the East and West Coast, I think they tend to be more liberal. They tend to be more willing to take direction from the government. Big cities, urban areas, they tend to say, well, if the government says it's good, then that's what we'll do. And they maybe tend to be more educated about science, maybe. The flyover country in the middle of the US is very much the Bible Belt. It's very much Republican. It's very red country. And I live in a little liberal enclave in Wisconsin. But there were a tremendous number of people who said, America's all about freedom. The Constitution gives us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and I'm not happy in a mask. But I think the number of people who said, screw that, I'm an American and I can do what I
Can't
want,
tell me what to do.
was probably higher in the Midwest and the South and the central parts of the countries, maybe Pacific Northwest a little bit, probably higher there than it was, New York, LA kind of areas. But that we also have the media that blows everything out of proportion. So You know, everything has to be always clickbait.
Sensational.
And I have a friend, I actually did a podcast with them about COVID. His family was one of these Southern families that were all about freedom and constitutional rights, and they weren't going to do what the scientists and the elites told them they should do. They scheduled a wedding in, I believe it was in July, which was like, you know, when our peak was shooting up.
Yeah.
300 people, wedding in Texas. People flew in from all over the country for this wedding. They lost like 6 or 7 grandparents. They had 40 people come down with hospitalized COVID who attended the wedding. They had a lot of other people who had it that weren't hospitalized, but they didn't, in general, they didn't feel any remorse about it because they were exercising their freedom. And they were trusting God to keep them safe from the virus, and God works in mysterious ways. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
I don't think that was very mysterious.
My brain can't wrap around what you're thinking. I don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
It just seems so bizarre. Now that said, I'm planning a wedding in August, and we made sure that we got a location where we can open all the windows and doors, and it'll be very spacious. You know, it's a small space, but with the windows and doors open, there'll be good ventilation. And I'm asking everybody I invited, are you vaccinated? Please get your vaccine before you come, please. I have one person I invited who's not going to get his vaccine. And I'm like, well, if it's just one, okay. But, you know, there's this freedom and independent thing in America that I don't think other countries have as much of.
I think the thing is, over here, people, they might not have agreed with the restrictions. They might not have liked the restrictions. We've definitely had protests. We've definitely had those things. But I think the overall consensus, but I think it's just a different cultural mindset. Like, as a person that's been in both areas and has had the experience of both, it's very much, I think you're right. In the US, it's the right of freedom to do what you want and to be how, it's very, what I'm going to do what's best for me and make my own decisions. And I've definitely felt that over in the UK and in Europe as a whole, it's been more of a collective socialist society in the sense of, I might not like it, I'm pissed off about it, but this is what I have to do. And I'll scream that I'm not happy about it. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm doing it because I have to do it, even if I don't agree or like it. And I think, it's just a different mindset. I think that's been my experience with it.
It's what they refer to as, you may not have heard this, but it's like blitz mentality. So everyone in the blitz got together in the bomb shelters, had a little sing song, shared their biscuits, and they got through it together. And that is now ingrained in British culture. Like, we pull together when we need to. You know, I'm going to yell at you, person. I'm going to be annoyed because you parked in my parking space. But when we need to, we pull together for the greater good. Like, again, tarring with a brush, because there are going to be people who don't do that at all. But it's something I think that's ingrained in our culture, that we're like, right, we're going to pull together. This is the right thing. I might not like it, but I'm going to do it because in the long run, it's what's best.
That's it. Is we're all going to be annoyed, but we're going to be annoyed together.
We're going to be annoyed together.
We're going to get on our Zoom calls and be annoyed together that we're on a Zoom call instead of in person. And we're all going to go out. We're going to clap for carers. We're going to wait.
Right. We're all going to stand on our doorsteps.
And we're all going to complain about the fact that we've all gone out and clapped because it's like,
because that doesn't do anything. Why aren't we paying the NHS the right money? And we're going to put that on Facebook, but I'm still going to be on the doorstep.
But I'm going to go on the doorstep.
Because Sandra next door will call me out if I don't do it.
Right.
Either we both just went because across the next door, know if I'm not out there. And then I look like a dick because I didn't go out and clap for carers.
Right.
But that is it. But I think to bring it back to sort of the beer element of things, when you found out that there were the changes obviously to the bar and obviously the sense of the hospitality aspect of things, weren't so much what they were pre-COVID, in the before times, as I like to call it. How did that sort of make you all feel to be like, I can't just go out, because I don't know about how you guys individually feel. I guess that's the first question. Is over here, when I moved over here, I really found that the drinking and pub culture was the bonding space, and I never really felt that in the US. I felt people's houses and restaurants and that kind of stuff was more of the bonding space. Bars are when you go out with your friends to have a good time and to get drunk and all that stuff. Other events were for socializing. Over here, it's very much focused around the pub. Even if you're not drinking, it's a gathering space. You have a good meal, you have good drinks, and that's your socializing. It's all centered around that. Do you guys feel that pre-COVID that was kind of your gathering space as well? And when you kind of found out, the secondary question is, when you kind of found out that's changed, how did that make you feel in terms of just your overall, I don't know, the overall feelings you had about it?
It's been interesting for me because pre-COVID, it was friends' houses, getting together in a group somewhere else, but not at a bar. When COVID hit, we actually went out more to the breweries because they had outdoor space. And we were pretty much the only ones there. We got to know the staff. Everybody was great. I went out more last year than I've ever gone out because it wasn't crowded and it was fun. And you could talk to people and find out about the beers, and you didn't have people pretending that they wanted to know, or, taking up the whole bar space. And it was just wonderful. And then as we've lifted restrictions, we're a little frustrated because we're the ones who have been keeping these people open, and suddenly we can't get in. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, you were my best friend last week, and now suddenly I can't get in? What's up with this? So we've actually had like the opposite, in my opinion, for us, the opposite issue happen. And I'm kind of frustrated with how, like, all these people, where have they been? Like, where's this freedom that they wanted so much? We were more free during the COVID stuff than we are now, in my opinion.
That's really interesting.
That's really interesting because over here it was, you cannot go to other people's houses, even outside. So you can't go to businesses. You can't go. We were very, very strict. And I think that's what made me frustrated about seeing people I know in the US that were just going out and about like nothing was happening. And that's a different situation to what you were doing, because they were just acting like literally nothing was like, I'm taking a photo around a table with 5 of my friends and we're all together, huddled together. And that was really irritating to me, because I was just like, you're there having the time of your life and we're all stuck here in our own houses, unable to even see other people. But I never, like, that is a really interesting perspective, because we didn't even have that option.
Yeah.
No. You don't need to safe space. You don't need to justify anything. I think that's really interesting.
Because you did have the places, and they had outdoor the furnaces, or they had a fire pit, and we'd be all bundled up, and it would just be the 2 of us out there having a grand time, and people would come out and talk to us, from the staff who were all masked, and it was, I loved it. And so I'm having an
VIP. VIP.
Well, yeah, I agree, Cheryl, because like, especially when we were doing like pickups, or like you could order online and then pick it up in the brewery, but they weren't open for service.
Right.
Like, you could go there and you could talk to the brewers and you could talk to the staff, and they would make time for you. And I think we talked about this on one of our virtual pubs, but it's just interesting to see now that they're getting busier. Like, you don't have that interaction with the staff. And then you're just, I don't know. I'm not big on crowds. Like, I'm claustrophobic as it is. Like, it was nice to have that space to be able to, not have to worry about my kids running around and messing with somebody else or whatever. But it's just like, I agree, Cheryl. It's just different now, and everybody's just like, sweet, we're all out and about. And
do you guys reckon that, like, was that how it was before COVID? Or do you think that it's almost worse because of the fact that people haven't been able to have that interaction, and now that they can have that interaction, or they're being told from a legal perspective, you can go back to the way things were, that more people are actually going out because they felt they've missed a year of their life and that's it, they're all going to go out and make the most of it, and now it's more packed? Or is it about the same level? Or?
I think it's the pendulum, and they went no going out at all, and now everybody's going back, and we were in the middle. And I'm really hoping that it comes back to
comes
work.
back.
medium.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, polite. And sometimes that politeness that I hope will continue. We used to have it before, and I think we still will. My hope is that we still will. But I hope that because we're getting to the point in the US where literally we're going to say, take our masks off and let it all fly. I hope that even though we have that availability, that we still will realize that yeah, I need to still consider that there's other people around me that might not feel comfortable yet, or even myself. Like we have the thing, like I'm fully vaccinated, so I can literally go in any store most of the time without a mask. We went into our distributor today and they said, if you're fully vaccinated, you can come in. We have no way to say, oh, by the way, check at the door. Oh, by the way, do you show me your card? You
Right.
can. That's the biggest thing in the US. They're trying to figure out how to do that. What does that look like? And so many hospitality people have said, how do I do that without being like standing like almost like an enforcement officer at the door saying, oh, by the way, what does that look like? And so I feel for those people because it's like they have to be protective of their staff. They have to be protective of their patrons. And so therefore it's like, how do you do that? And how do you trust people again? And that's the part that I realize and hope as people that we start to trust a little more, but also try to realize that it's okay to not. It's okay to take a step back and realize, oh, I need to be a little more cautious. I need to be a little bit more aware of what's going on.
Coming out of this, it's going to be really difficult to adjust back to normal life. Even when it's safe to do so, you have to wonder what the lasting damage, not damage,
It's been
but you know what I
traumatic.
mean?
No, it has. It's been
lasting-
traumatic for people.
People-
PTSD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You-
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it is.
You're going to have
Absolutely.
kids that are feeling anxious because they don't fully understand
Yes.
what it's like to be wearing a mask and not wearing a
Yep.
mask. And
Yep.
it's going to be difficult. And I think it's going to be hard for everyone to get used to adjusting to what normal is after everything for the last year.
And it's like, how many times are you watching something on the telly? I don't know if this is the same for everybody else, but I'll be watching something that's, older, and there's a group, loads of people in a small space, and I'm like, oh my god, why are those people not
Get
wearing
away from
me? Oh, because it was filmed
It
like,
had to have been.
yeah, it's filmed like 3 years ago, like, so nobody was thinking of that. Like, there are times where I still go, oh my gosh, there's so many people in that. Oh, it's it's made up.
They're
Like,
breathing
not
each
real.
other's exhalations.
I was going to say
Right.
the one thing that I didn't get to say is that the thing that I want to take out of this is I want personal space. moving
Personal
forward.
space, yes.
Personal
Yes.
space is my one takeaway.
Yep.
I think if like the work from home thing, I like that, but also personal space.
And
We took my mom out for Mother's Day and we wore our masks the whole time, and we sat down and we took our masks off to eat, and we put our masks on and we wore our masks in the car on the way home. We're all vaccinated.
Yeah.
Wore our masks all the way home, dropped her off. And then I read all these things about people being able to hug their moms. And I was like, I didn't hug
You didn't
her.
even
Like,
think
I
about it.
couldn't
Because
hug her.
you're like, I can't do
And so
that.
the
Yeah.
next time I texted her, I'm like, I didn't hug you today. And so the next time I saw her, I was like, I've got to hug you before we do anything. But both of us like turned our heads, even though we were wearing masks. It was like,
The only person I've risked hugging is my nephew, who's like 13, and he's just like we've always been close like that, and like we'd be places, and like my dad and my brother would be, because they lived together, would be in like the kitchen and I'd be outside, and it was my nephew's birthday, and I'd gone around and I'd taken cake, and like that had been handed over, and I was stood back, and he just kind of wiggled his way from the back of the kitchen to the door and just kind of stood there and looked at me, and I was like, come here quick, nobody's looking, quick,
You need to
you
do
can
that
have a
because
hug.
13, like,
Right,
as they
I was
get
like,
to
he's
13,
still at the point where he wants to give me a hug.
if
so
he
we'll-
still
we'll
wants to
take
give you
one
a hug,
quick-
Oh, you
take
have
it.
Yeah. And I was just
Absolutely.
like, do you know what,
Don't miss
kids?
that chance.
I'm gonna give kids hugs. Sorry, that
Yeah,
one I will break the rules for. Dude,
Yeah,
like, we've had
that's
you
right.
a
I
long
think we're just
time.
making
my kids
Right.
dinner, so
Nice
but
to
Yes.
meet you.
Thank you
That
so
was
much, ladies.
Thank
This
you,
has been
guys.
brilliant,
Brilliant.
as always.
Thank you
Virtual
so
events will
much.
continue. Do not
that's
worry.
good. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Love you guys.
Excellent, excellent.
Got a few questions. We thought we'd just have some casual chat, get your feedback. How did you find out about Women's Pint Club, and what made you want to join?
I think I started my little beer Instagram to try and network with more people who drink craft beer, because I only know like real ale drinkers or cider drinkers in real life. So the internet is the best place to meet new people. And then I just found Joe's page on Instagram as like one of those suggested things. It's like, this is cool. Like, this is a woman teaching people about beer. Like, yes, please. And then from there, it just kind of, I just like internet stalked, and then was like, found the women's pint club group and was like, okay, yes, this is good. Women who drink beer, this is what I need in lockdown while I'm drinking too much beer by myself and I've got no one to tell about it. So I think that's how it came about. And then I just joined a Zoom and it was chaos and I loved it.
I love it. Like, chaos is like the best.
Yeah.
That's like the one theme that comes up every time we talk about like our Zoom chat.
Yeah.
It's like, it's chaos, but everyone's like, but I loved it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what I guess what leads on to that sort of is like, what made you kind of say like, I want to join a virtual pub session? Like, was it that you wanted to speak to sort of like-minded women, or was it that you were missing the pub overall, or was it?
Yeah, I was missing the pub and that sort of community, and not many women in my life drink beer, so to find a whole group of women who do drink beer, it was like I found my little niche in a way. I kind of went looking for a community, and then it just happened to be all women, and that was great for me.
Yeah, that was brilliant. It is very rare. I will say, like, I feel like it's quite rare to find a whole community of like beer drinking women, and like exclusively just women drinking beer, or female identifying people drinking beer. It's very rare to get that. So
I think we've bonded over other things as well. Like, we've all found that we've got various different things in common as well. We apparently all have the same sort of sense of humor.
Yes.
Yeah.
People that you didn't think had that sense of humor.
Yeah.
As soon as you had like gone like 3 hours into a drinking session with them, all of a sudden you were like, oh, I didn't expect you to say that.
Didn't expect that you to say that. Yeah, it's great. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Rachel, but I remember you messaged me after, I think it was after the first one, you were like, my partner has kept hearing me laugh. And he said he hasn't heard that in ages. So it was really nice. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad.
I'm still up
there for.
My favorite part is like when we have like so many people in a room. We were discussing sort of with the US ladies how they're like, sometimes there's so many people in the room that it's so difficult to like keep track of the conversations. And I was like thinking about how there was that one time there was about 3 conversations going on. I think like 2 people having conversations, and then me and you, Rachel, were just like, we're just gonna Google like hop tattoos. and then like people were chatting and we were just like, about this one, and they were like, yeah, gonna shortlist that one. So that's gonna be like, that has to be an episode in itself of like, we go and get our matching hop tattoo.
Yes.
That was so good. It was like people talking shit, and then we were going like, this one, I really like that one.
There is sense within our chaos within the meetups.
It is definitely, and I think we all just, when we're all together, we all kind of just get on the same wavelength, and you kind of just like know like, oh, they're having a conversation right now, and it's weird because you can find that person that you're talking to in with the chaos, and it's like you can still have a conversation while somebody else is having a conversation. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does feel like that.
It's like when you sat around a table, isn't it? Like you can just sort of delve off into your little groups, and then, oh, I want to join in that bit now and hop in there.
Which is interesting, because I think you don't tend to think people usually, when you try to do that on a Zoom chat, it doesn't pan out very well. But I found that like as a group, we've been able to do that quite well. I don't know how, but
multitasking.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the end of the night and we're all like,
we're like, oh no,
let's
not.
But
that's normal pub. Like, it really has emulated the pub where we get towards the end and it's like, oh, so and so's had one too many.
We need like a last call bell.
Bedtime? No, it's me going, is it bedtime now?
It's usually
the last call bell.
It's usually Joanne going, I think it's time to go to bed now. And we're all like, okay. But I think the best part about it is like it's like judgment free. Like people can be themselves like so fully, and then like we're just like, yeah, no, it's cool. Like be weird, say whatever you want, and you know, Go
See
to
you
bed,
next
it's fine.
time.
And then the next time, like Lisa all the time would be like, I'm so sorry, guys. And we're like, don't apologize. Like, it's fine. Like, if you weren't doing that, like, that would be weird. So
Yeah.
carry on doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, have you gone out to an actual pub since?
Yes.
Start?
Yeah. I'm
How's it been?
goer. It's been really good. I actually worked a shift in my local, which is opposite a football ground, on Saturday for like the first match back, and seeing everyone in there like bustling behind the bar, like running around, like everything's COVID safe, but you're running around, bustling about. There's noise. The atmosphere is back. It was so good to see that people aren't some people are still a little bit wary, but people aren't scared. They just want that community again, especially when they go into a football match. It's normal. And the only sad thing really was that we had to turn away as many people as we could let in. So it was like, we're full, really sorry. And they're like, oh no, like, no worries, we'll just have to like try back in a bit. But yeah, I love the pub, and I've been to the pub and I've loved it. And draft beer it hits so different.
Yeah, I just went to Phantom on Saturday, and it was like you said, it was.
You had a flight. I'm excited.
I did. Two flights.
I'm excited. You have 2 flights. I'm excited for flights again.
Me too.
Started making my own. Yeah, I've started making my own. Just being like, I'm having a little bit of this. Gordon can have the rest of that. I did all British lagers the other weekend, and I was like, I'm gonna have a third, and then Gordon can have the rest. There we go. And then it's like I'm having a flight.
I've definitely done that at home since, like, trying to, when I first got like the first time I bought a whole bunch of beers from Elusive, I did that, and I put together, this was like sort of, I don't know, maybe like beginning, middle-ish of the first lockdown, because I was like, how can I recreate the pub experience in my house? Because I was like, I mean, we were never really big pub goers because the pubs around us don't have particularly good, but I don't mean that in a rude way. It's just, it's not the stuff that I would want to go out to pay to drink. I'd rather sort of just drink at home and drink what I like. But when you're not going out at all, you start to just get a bit like, how can I make things more interesting? Because I felt like I was just drinking, but then I was like, it's almost, what's the point? I'm not going out, no one's coming around. So I was like, how can I like add purpose to it again? So I picked up a few different beers from Elusive one day, and I was like, what if I like make a little flight for us and like do like a food pairing with it? So I was like googling what goes really well with certain things, and I like set it up in our lounge, like by our fireplace, and I was like, we could just pretend we're at the pub, we'll just light a fire and we'll just pretend we're at a pub, pretend we're doing a tasting. And so like, I totally get it, but the second I could have a real flight, I was like, had to. It was amazing. But yeah, I guess anyone that doesn't know probably won't know, you work at a brewery as well, so what's like timeline wise, if we go back to sort of like just before lockdown sort of happened, would you be comfortable telling us sort of what your experience has been from that point up until now with how you've had to go through things?
So in March time we were still packaging for cask and keg, and then all of a sudden lockdown hit, we stopped packaging cask and keg. We had some beer that had been brewed for cask that we had to then bottle condition and package that way, just to get it, like, it was sort of one-off beers that we didn't want to, you don't want to leave them, you don't want to risk putting them in a cask that's not going to sell. And then keg beer went into cans, or I think we did bottle some as well. And we were so lucky that we have those facilities on site anyway. We could just like switch production from cask and keg to bottle and can, because those systems were already there. We were already using them anyway alongside. But it was really tough, because if you imagine what you get in 50 kegs, that's not 50 cans, it's a lot more.
Yeah.
So it took a lot longer to package. It was a real shift for us, but we ended up hiring a few more staff to help out. And then we just got into the swing of bottles and cans. We've got contracts with supermarkets, so that kept us going as well. And then towards the sort of end of lockdown 3, we had to drain pour loads of cask and keg.
Oh, really?
Tragic. Just pallets and worth.
I've got a question about that, actually. Sorry, not to interrupt, because I want to hear the rest of it. But I've seen so many places that had to drain pour stuff. And I had a question that no one ever really answered. Is it because sort of when you put it into a cask or a keg or whatever, it can only sit in there for so long? Or is there something else that causes it where it's no longer viable to kind of put into a can? Or was it that you had so much that literally canning it wasn't going to go anyways?
Yeah, I think part of it is the volume. There was a lot, and the sort of the way we do things, we wouldn't put things from a keg back into a tank to then put in a can, just because the risk of infection, I think, is
Fair.
much.
Yeah.
And then there's also, so the reason it went down the drain rather than being saved is the best before dates. Imagine hoppy beers, you want to drink them fresh. If a keg could have been packaged last March and hadn't been used by now, it wouldn't be the best product, so it's not right to put it out.
Yeah.
And if you pour it down the drain, you don't pay duty. So there was that sort of,
you have to decide, you
have to make the decision.
Yeah.
If you pay your duty and risk it, or if you drain pour it and you've not paid the duty, but you've lost the potential profit.
No, that all makes sense. It was more that, like, I saw so many places doing it, and I think the first place that it goes to in my mind is like, oh, hey, can you put that in can? Like, is there some way to save it, like, crowlers or something? But I think what didn't necessarily, that whole duty thing was something that never crossed my mind. The risk of infection for going, transport it back and then out again, never crossed my mind either. And then it's do you take that risk and put it in a can and then it doesn't sell, and then you've paid duty for something you can't sell because you've got so much stock now. I think for me, it was so gutted. Like, I was just gutted to see like all these people just pouring the beers down because that's all they could do. I was just like, oh, like, just heartbreaking. But thank you for answering that, because I was really curious, and no one actually, I asked the question, I was like genuinely curious, no one actually answered it. They were all just like, because we have to. And I was like,
it's too much to explain sometimes. It just has to go,
there were people just going, well, they just have to do it. And I was like, but why? Like, I'm not asking to be rude, I genuinely want to know.
But so then we had the drain pour thing, and then we packaged, the sort of in between lockdowns where the pubs opened a bit, we did a little bit of cask and keg, just to tick over a little bit, and then straight back into canning. And then towards the end of lockdown 3, I think people stopped buying beer because they knew the pubs were opening up.
Yeah.
January time, it really dropped off. We filled the warehouse, and so we had to stop. Well, not stop brewing, but massively slow down production. And then since January, we've started getting back up. We do all of the formats now. keg, rack, and can and bottle, but not all on the same day usually.
Without going into detail of like which brewery it is, because I don't want to get into the sort of details of who it is for your anonymity and everyone else's. But I think, like, have you seen kind of a rise with going back to sales to breweries and trade more so than maybe you were seeing sort of, I don't know, did it change? Did you see like a slowdown of trade, not just pubs, but like bottle shops and stuff? Did that slow down during the pandemic? And then
I think
still in the pandemic, but
I think to start with, like, demand for cans went through the roof because people were drinking at home. You can't, like, people don't buy a keg just to drink at home. So and people wanted to support local, wanted to shop local. And then I think, like, we then saw people didn't want to buy the same beers all the time. So we have like our core range, and that seemed to drop off a little bit. So then we started experimenting more. It kind of forced us to be a bit more creative, which was really, for us, because we're just like, we get to drink new beer.
That's really good,
yeah. So we got new beers coming out, and that picked up, I think. And then we started doing the subscription boxes that are quite common now. Like, you pay whatever a month, and the brewery sends you like new releases or specials. They send that out to you every month. So that's been a really good way to like guarantee that we've got some money coming in. And then it was only when sort of the people were like, oh yeah, like 5 weeks till pubs open, that the demand for cans and bottles just dropped off for us.
It's so funny though, because there are a lot of people that I've seen that were like, oh, pubs are opening, so I'm not buying, like I'm trying not to buy anything anymore. And I'm like, yeah, but like this one's coming out, like this one's coming out, and like I just want to have it. So I don't really like you would never know if you looked at all the beer that I have, like you would never know that I like stopped by, like I definitely didn't stop, but like I feel like I'm making up for like some of the people that are not buying anymore. I'm like, I'll just keep buying. I don't want so beer obviously is your career. It's also, I know you do homebrew as well. So hobby as well. And then you've got the Pint Club and everything. So I guess my question is like, did you see the role of how beer sat in your life, just beer as a whole? Did that change what it meant to you and where it sat in your life? Did you see that shift over the pandemic, or is it kind of more or less has the same place in your life as it's had the whole time?
I struggled a little bit with beer becoming everything. Go to work and deal with beer. I come home, have a beer to relax, and then I talk about beer and this or the other. And I didn't have my other hobbies that I had before because I play sport, and we're not allowed back till the end of June to that. So I've really missed that over the pandemic. That like keeps me level most of the time is go get my exercise and then like crack on. But I think beer did become almost an obsession, and then I got kind of burnt out from it. So like more recently I've just been like, I want a lager, like I want a macro lager just because like I love good beer, craft beer, all different styles of beer. I was just tired of it being everything. But I think everyone has had that in a lockdown. They've like hobbies that they used to love have become everything, and then it's too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I completely relate to what you're saying, because my husband said to me the other day, like, all you ever do is like beer stuff. And I was just like, well, with the podcast and stuff like that, takes up a lot of time outside work. And I was like, and to be fair, there's still not a lot that you can do. So it just becomes so easy to get sucked into all this stuff. So I was like, oh, when it comes to like reading, I could sit and read, but then like, because I think people are using social media more, like you're constantly getting messages from people and that's distracting. And I said, it's just so difficult to like focus on reading, or like you said, you can't really go out and do sports and anything that kind of was a hobby. If you do it too much now because it's all you can do, it just becomes a bit like, I've my sort of compromise with beer has been like, I've always been like, I can't have a beer unless I'm gonna like take the proper photo of it, I'm gonna take notes of it, and I'm gonna do all this. And what I've done is like my step back from things is I'm like, no, sometimes I'm just gonna drink a beer and I'm not gonna take notes on it, because it doesn't matter what the notes are. I don't have to like, I always found tasting notes to be really fun, but the more that I felt like forced to do that over lockdown and over analyze it, the more I was like, what happens if I just don't do it? Maybe I really want to drink this beer, but if it means I have to suddenly take notes on it, it becomes exhausting and I'm not in the mood for it right now. So I've gone like, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to not make notes. I felt like that was me being like pushing boundaries. Like I'm not.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's that sometimes you want to sit down and analyze this beer, and that's like part of your enjoyment of it is analyzing it.
Yeah.
And so you want to sit down, have a little drinky drink, chill out, and have a chat. And there's more than one way to drink beer.
Yeah. Like I've definitely started like, I'm trying something new. Like I'm not going to drink the same thing because that's taking away an opportunity for me to have something new. Now I've been like, yeah, but I really liked that one. I could drink that again because it was really good. That's allowed.
Yeah, you can. But maybe that's part of it though. It's like when we were sort of stuck in a house and you could do mixed orders from bottle shops, and I mean you still obviously can do that, but I think maybe there was more of an incentive to try new things, explore a bit, because you kind of tended to do that, I think, only when you went to someplace new because you wanted to try as much as someplace had.
Yeah.
But if you're going to your local and you knew what they had and you've already had all the stuff there, you'd just be drinking the same stuff there. So you think, well, I'm at home, I'm going to take this opportunity to try new things.
All the beers.
Yeah. And then you kind of get to like, I've got too much option now.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want something I've already had that I don't have to think about. I can just, that's like you said, macro beers and stuff. It's like sometimes you're like, I just want to shut off and just have this beer.
Yeah.
But yeah, good shout on that, because I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, is like some people did probably tend to take it a lot more seriously than maybe they were before. And you do get burnt out, I think. So what was your favorite part about pubs pre-COVID? Like, what's your number one favorite thing?
I think for me, just like the community. You can walk in and start a conversation and just be like, oh, what are you drinking? And you might like have a conversation that you've never thought you'd have with someone that you never thought you'd have that conversation with. And just I really, really miss the sort of passive socialization. I'm quite like I am quite a shy person, so sometimes in pubs I'll just sit there and have my little pint, and then everyone else is having a chat, and I'll have a little chip in, then I'll chill out and do my thing. And it's everything in lockdown was you have to send the message, you have to like be on a Zoom call, you have to actively participate in the socialization rather than just being able to sit back and be content just watching it. And I think that was what I miss most about pubs, is that just sitting there and watching the world go by, doing my own thing and feeling like I'm having a social as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like hearing you say that, like that you've got to be at like you've got to join the Zoom call, you've got to be on like watching the Facebook Live or whatever. There were several things that like I was like, oh, I didn't get a chance to do that event or do this thing, because I was just like, I don't want to get onto another Zoom call today.
Yeah.
Or I've done so many this week, or I'm doing something else, and so I can't join that now. And there was a couple of things that I was just like, oh, I feel like I missed out on that, but actually I probably didn't.
Yeah.
But it was that you had to be there, like, so you've got to get onto this call and you've got to have these beers and you've got to do, you've got to do this. There was, though it was a great way of connecting, sometimes there was still a bit of too much pressure on it.
Yeah.
I think
it's kind of good though that you say like, oh, you are more of a shy person, and like, so you are a person that likes to just be more sort of passive and just like sort of hear what's going on, take it all in. And it is difficult on Zoom, because when you're on Zoom, people kind of are worried that if you're not saying something that like
you're being left out.
Yeah, like I think
always that you're being left out, you're just enjoying the chit chat in a way.
Yeah,
that's the thing, is I think like the first time I was on a Zoom chat with you and stuff, I thought, I was like, oh my god, like I hope she's like not absolutely like hating this or something like that. And then you came back again, like Joe's like, no, she like genuinely had a good time, and then you came back and I was like, okay, I was like, so she's just shy. Like I was just really like I was just like really worried.
We haven't scared anybody off. That's okay.
I was just like really worried that I was like, oh no. And I think because if you were in a pub, you wouldn't think twice about it because there's so many other things going round. But when you're on a Zoom, you're looking at everybody kind of face to face, and you're just like worried of like, oh no, like what if we're just like not giving her a chance to talk or something like that. So that's really good that you've had, because I think other people have probably felt the same. Like they're like, I go on the Zoom calls because I want to see other people, but I don't necessarily want to say anything. Some people are less wanting to speak up. So but I didn't realize how much I missed seeing other people's dogs.
Oh yeah
until I saw about 5 dogs walk into Phantom over the weekend, and I was like, no,
they're not just on the screen.
No, I was like, oh, hi you, how are you doing? Not the people, so I don't care about them, but the dog's cute. But I guess, like, is there anything that you've sort of taken away from the difference between sort of a Zoom chat and an in-person chat from one or the other? Like, what's your favorite part of both, and like what would you want to make sure you maintain from both?
That's a really tricky one. I think Zoom for me is good for purposely going in to talk to people that I won't see out and about. Like, I'm not going to bump into you guys.
Yeah.
You might do, but it'd be really weird.
It'd be really bizarre if
What
we
are
did.
you doing here?
So it's that, like, for me, I think the online sort of situation is good for when you can't get there in person, you can't be there in person, we're still a little community. Like, we're just all in different places, and that's really good. And then the casualness of just wandering down to the local, popping in, seeing who's there. I think the online has more like, for me, I'm like, yes, this has purpose. I'm going to go and talk to these people, and
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Do you think you'll keep doing virtual events and things?
Yeah. Like I say, it allows you to do more. If you say, "Oh, that looks really good, I want to do that," but if I saw an event over, like, down in London, I'd be like, "Oh, I can't do it. Like, it's not feasible. I can't get there." Whereas now it's like, "Oh, they're based in London, but I can just log in, and you're there. You're part of it anyway." So, like, ordering the boxes. I think we did the International Women's Day one.
Yeah,
where we
That was so fun.
that was
all
so
ordered the
good.
box.
Yeah.
And we were all sat at home, like in our own homes, separate. It felt like we were like part of it all. It was really good.
I think it was great because we had the separate Discord chat going on as well. So it was like they were having a conversation, and then we were like chipping in on the Instagram, like feeding in, and then like somebody would get a shout out. We'd be in the Discord.
Like, ah! They said my name.
There was your question.
We'd be like, oh my god, like, they are hilarious. Like, I think the thing was, like, every time, like, Jago was like, I don't think we can have another person on. You're gonna have to drop. I'll just invite them in and see what happens. And then it would go from like 2 people to 3 people, and then she'd be like, "What?" And then she's like, "Surely we can't get 4 people on here." And then, like, all of a sudden the 4th person popped up, and she's like, "What is going on?"
Oh, it's so good.
That was I think that's, you maybe touched the nail on the head there. As with Zoom, it's kind of the people that you're making an effort to go and speak to versus the randomness of who you might bump into, and like a new friend you might make, as opposed to you're going in to go have a conversation with like-minded people that you know already, you have like an established connection with. So yeah, definitely. And I'm totally in agreement. When I see an event, I'm like, I really hope they do a virtual one.
Yeah,
I really don't want to travel all the way.
I really want people to do like virtual chunks of other events so that you can still take part in things that are too far away to get to.
I really want us to keep having the virtual Discords as well on the side, because those chats are like just such good chats. And then like after that conversation, we're like, should we just have like a impromptu call? And we're like, let's just have a call.
It's just like,
we'll just have one more. We'll just have a chat.
That just saying let's have one more is always that's always the kicker though, isn't it? It's like, we can just have one more. Next day we're like, we shouldn't have had that one more.
That was the amount of time that like Joe and I like, should we just get just one more? And then like the next day we're like, we just shouldn't have done that. We should have just said no at the one more.
One day we'll learn. We'll never learn.
I was just trying to think what other questions. So the only other questions really kind of, because you've kind of already said, I guess that more or less kind of answered the where do you see each of them sit? Do you see them both sitting in your life moving forward? You know, will they continue to both have a place? And I think you've kind of answered that. You would. But if you had to pick one or the other, virtual or in person, and don't worry, because somebody else said they couldn't pick, and they very much, I'm not going to give you ideas, but someone else said they couldn't pick because of reasons.
because of reasons.
I don't want to like give you the answer. Then you're like, yeah, that's the one. I want your own organic answer, so you can say both if you really want to.
I think I like both, but for me, like to the wire, I pick in-person pubs, just because I've worked in pubs. It's where I've like grown as a person. I've I don't know. It's one of those. I started working in pubs at like 19. And I've not stopped. I'm 20.
Yeah.
So I don't see myself ever not going to the pub. Well, I could see myself forgetting to log into Zoom calls.
That's true. That's true, because I think there's like so many, just like, especially in the digital world, you have so many notifications going off all the time that like all it takes is for like it to be like reminder Zoom call, and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever, 10 minutes, then you just totally forget about it. But I think, like, would you say overall, like, the concept of these virtual pubs, whether it be our Women's Pint Club or just any virtual pub in general, I mean, have you ever done any other virtual pubs, really? I guess it's the first question. Or is this kind of the only one you've done?
Yeah, I logged into a Mirakai one. I did like a midweek Mirakai. I logged into that one. But I was just quiet on that one, and I felt like people thought I was a bit weird, just like listening. So I didn't log in again.
I just feel like I'm just pleased about the fact that you said you logged into a midweek Mirakai.
Yeah.
They're still trending, guys. Still trending. Hashtag midweek Mirakai. So pleased about that. But yeah, I guess, would you say that they've changed, virtual pubs in general have changed your life at all, like in a good way or a bad way, or has it just been kind of there, just a neutral thing?
Yeah, I've met you guys, so it's been a positive thing for me.
Look forward to having a beer in person at some point in the future.
Yeah,
and more virtual pint clubs. Fun. We are in the pub. We are properly in the pub.
We are properly in the pub. There is background noise, so
there's trains, there's crowds,
there are people, everything.
We are in person.
We're in person.
We've got 2 people with us.
Yep.
And yeah, this is going to be an experience. So apologies in advance if the sound isn't really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Real pub noises.
And pints, so
and we got an actual pints. Look at the actual pints. No, you've changed yours. That's okay. She's had a pint already.
So basically, to start off, do you guys both want to say, you ladies, I should say, do you both want to sort of say who you are and roughly where you're from, and how did you find the Women's Pint Club Facebook group? Yours is going to be a really good one, I think.
Hi, I'm Louise, and I'm from Canterbury, so I've forgotten the order of the questions. So I'm from Canterbury, and I've known Jo from the meetup group. So Jo started the meetup group a couple of years ago to meet women around Canterbury that drink beer, and we started going out in and around Canterbury, drinking lots of beer, and then lockdown happened, and just kept following Jo on the Facebook group. Still drinking beer.
Still drinking beer. Lou is like an OG Women's Pint Club. Like, she came to the first, we did it on Meetup, and she was one of the first people to just, like, didn't know me, didn't know anybody, just randomly turned up at the pub because there was a meetup group, and we were like, we're all women that want to drink beer, and here we are together.
I've got more questions for you later on the experience, because there's like, I've got so many questions about the fact that you were there before it went virtual, but I'm going to hold that thought because that's a separate question that I'm going to ask later. So, Charlotte?
So I'm Charlotte. I've been on the podcast before in a very long, rambling episode. Oh, I had a lovely time. I wonder how far the listeners got through the episode, because so yeah, I work for Phantom Brewing Co. in Reading, and I had never met either of you, Tori or Jo, until recently, and Louise, I only met you literally 2 hours ago, and it's lovely to meet you. And I first started interacting with Tori online when we were talking about Siren beers. So obviously Siren are very local to us at Phantom. Anybody who knows Tori knows that she is the ultimate Siren, like the saleswoman that doesn't actually work there.
This is the podcast drinking game. If you're playing the podcast drinking game, please take a drink for talking about Siren and Tori.
The salesperson that doesn't work there. I'm waiting for my commission to come.
But so we started talking about that because obviously me at Phantom and you living around the corner and absolutely loving them, that was something we had in common. And then through that, when you said, I'm doing a podcast with Joanne, I was like, who's Joanne? I've never met this person. So I basically started listening to what you guys were doing, and just interacting with you guys more online in like various craft beer forums on Facebook and whatnot. And then thought it'd be fun to do a podcast, so we did. And so I unfortunately couldn't make it to any of the virtual Women's Pint Club things because I was always working. But it's nice to actually be able to do one in person and actually have pints with other people. It feels so weird.
I think the most interesting thing is as well is so obviously like the both of you have had drinks together before. I've had a drink where Charlotte is. I've not actually properly drank with you, but like
every time you've been in the same vicinity of me drinking, I've been pouring the pints.
But to be fair, like at Hoppy Place, I think you had a drink while you were working potentially, because you weren't fully on. I think you were you weren't there.
I was giving them.
You were just helping.
For context, the Hoppy Place is my local bottle shop. Very big friends of mine and Tories in particular, because we're local to them. Also, we at Phantom love them, get along with them a lot. We often just show up and sit in their beer garden and drain their fridges and their taps for them. And last summer, when I was not working, I was helping them out at the shop during COVID, and that was the first time me and Tori met in person, which was fun.
Technically, it's the proper time we've drunk together. Like, this is only the second time that Tori and I have ever actually met in person.
My next question for everybody really is, have you ladies all been out to the pub since it opened again on the 17th? So I have, not much, but I've only gone out maybe, I went to Phantom last weekend, Nag's Head before that, and I've been to Siren obviously to make a drink. Went to Siren and Elusive, which is a tap room, so I'm going to count that as pub. Yeah. How about you guys?
So I hadn't been until this week. We popped it. We went Tuesday after work. Me and the Hubs went to the Foundry, which is mine and Louise's local brew pub in Canterbury. We had a sneaky half and came back. It was lovely. It was like, I didn't realise how much I had missed fresh poured beer. Because I was like, I've been drinking beer at home. Like, I've had it from can, and you don't realise just how different it is until you haven't had it for ages. And then that fresh half was just amazing. Lou was in the door as soon as they opened. She was queuing up outside.
Straight out. So we have supported the Foundry all the way through lockdown by ordering beer, and they used to do a great delivery service. And as soon as the pubs were open, after each of the lockdowns, we booked our table, we'd gone in, we'd enjoyed our nice beers and some food. So we were straight out. Even when in April we went and sat in a garden in the freezing cold with some other old age pensioners who only came in for tea. They sat there and they had their tea and they had their lunch.
Do you know what? I love that.
They just want to get out.
It's really cute, the fact that they still want to go out together.
The pub is more than beer. I mean, granted, we're all beer people, but the pub is more than just beer. Like, a number of times the pub is more than beer. I mean, who knows? I'm not being funny with you. Maybe the title of Woman's Brew was referring to coffee all along. You never know.
I like coffee.
Yeah, for me, the thing I miss, as you were saying, Joe, we've all been drinking beer plenty through all of the various lockdowns, and also the fact that I work at Phantom, I've been lucky enough that when I finish a day at work, I can have a beer on site. Yeah, I can sit down with my co-workers and just have a beer and be like, right, well, I feel like it almost felt kind of like you were following the ritual of having a beer after your day at work. But the main thing is, it's the difference. It's, as someone put it, I can't remember who, it's the third place, basically, between work and home. And the pub is the third place. It's the place where you socialise. It's the place where you, especially, obviously, this is post-COVID, it's a very different situation. But, you know, you'd pop into the pub on your way home from work and you'd see someone you haven't seen in a couple of weeks. And it won't be someone who you know well enough to text them and directly say, hey, let's hang out. But it'll be someone who, when you do see them, you want to be like, oh, hey, how's your partner? How's work going for you? Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And that is, like, even having that from a distance at separate tables when you can't get up and mingle, just being able to raise a glass and being like, all right, how you doing from a distance, it's a good feeling.
So what was your favourite part about the pub pre-COVID? So obviously there's the people watching aspect, I'll put it in the middle so we can hear you, but the people watching aspect, I mean, is there anything else? Like for me, I think it was just it's funny because it's almost when you're not going out, you want to have some separate four walls, but when you go to it, I almost felt I took that for granted because it's like having a separate set of four walls. It's like, I don't want to do it.
And just I think the opportunity to just meet different people, because just casual, like the amount of times that we've been sat in a bar and like, I mean, that's out, like, so there's a guy that we chat to fairly regularly now, he's in our beer group on Gary, yeah. So we met Gary. Hi Gary. We met Gary because we were doing the first birthday of Women's Pint Club at a bar in Ramsgate called the Ravensgate, and it like he was sat there with his wife and we were drinking and he could see that we were really into stuff and he was like, what are you drinking? Like, it was like, what are you drinking? I've got this. Do you want to try that? And him and his wife popped over and he was like, oh, women, like, we'll come and chat to you. Like, my wife loves beer. You're more women that are drinking beer. Like, and we were sharing drinks. Are you just seeing? Look, hop earrings on. Totally against what I'm talking about right now. Yep. And we met Gary because he came over and had a chat with us, and now we chat to Gary all the time. Like, and that's the thing about being in the pub. He's brilliant. So we are back and we've moved and we're now outside and we are at Three Hills Outpost. We've all got Nitro baby, Nitro baby, chocolate donut stout, and it is ridiculous.
I'm getting like, it smells like a chocolate cruller, which people in this country won't know what that is. I don't care. You don't have to know. It's fine. If you are from the US, think of like a glazed chocolate stick from Dunkin' Donuts. It's like that in smell, and in taste it is like that in the aftertaste, but there's a bit of cinnamon in there as well. And if you listen to this podcast and you've listened this far in, you know how I feel about cinnamon, so well fucking done. So, amazing. And I'm going to try to buy this glass because this is the sexiest.
Yeah, these are gorgeous glasses.
This is the sexiest
well, so this is,
glass I've ever
seen. This is only day 2 of the Outpost of Three Hills Bar being open in Bermondsey, which is really, really dope.
Can I resign and give my role to Charlotte?
Well, it's really cool. Like, I'm really stoked to come down here. I honestly, you know, crucify me, it's fine. I didn't know this bar was opening, and I know I should have my finger on the pulse of this all the time.
I know. Goodness sake, Charlotte. God.
Because she remembered to call that out, and I definitely didn't. So well done, Charlotte.
I'm so stoked to be here because I always loved the Three Hills Stouts, and they did an IPA series last summer, which we had in the tap room, which went down really, really well, sold brilliantly, and I'm basically going to insist that we have like a permanent line to one of their empty stouts.
Now, I think we've covered kind of like the pre-COVID stuff, the physical pub stuff. There was a lot of stuff that we listed of things of like what we really liked about the actual pub experience, and I think what was kind of across the board was interactions with people and just kind of people watching and getting to know other people and stuff like that. I guess my first question to you guys is like, do you think that's something that you can replicate in a virtual pub? Like, have you felt that scratched that itch for you? Have you felt that that's difficult?
It has done it to a certain extent, definitely. Although it's, you know, the frequency, I suppose, hasn't been as much as I'd often go to the pub every weekend and meet up with people. But I mean, we were meeting as the Women's Pint Group monthly, I think, or you know, every so often. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been one of those one of those lifelines, I want to say. Yeah. And meeting people and expanding the group. It's been amazing talking to all those Americans.
We've made these connections with people, and it's amazing. Like, these people we're going to, like, you guys are going to be friends, my friends for life now. I mean, I think whether you like it or not, you're my friend for life now.
We touched on it before. It's like we wouldn't have this podcast if, like, everyone says, like, oh yeah, COVID was like the worst thing that's ever happened. It's like, I get that. It was horrible. It was horrible for industries. It was horrible for everybody. There were bright spots in that, and I think, like, we've kind of discussed, like, we wouldn't have the podcast if it wasn't for COVID, because I would have never gone to a beer group on Facebook. We would have never had group chats before that, or Zoom chats or anything like that before that.
I think people have been forced to be to be creative with different resources, basically. And it's a real shame that it took a mass deadly global pandemic, that destroyed millions of people's lives to do so. But I think it's forced people to be a bit more resourceful and think about things differently, and to have perhaps a different method of going about socialising or meeting new people, which I think is something to be great. Like, it's a silver lining in the shittiest of clouds.
Yes.
Like, that there is something.
You don't want to downplay the fact of, like, how important, like, how not important, but important is the word I want, but how big COVID was in everyone's life, and global.
It still is. It's devastating.
Exactly, devastating is the word. How devastating it has been, and we have managed throughout that to find a silver lining and persevere and still manage to meet new people. We've still made connections. And beer has allowed us to do that, which is, it is that social lubricant, and we still manage to do that online.
I think what's important as well to that, though, is, like, so obviously, like, the three of us have been in numerous video chats together, and Charlotte's been working, so, like, she's not actually had a chance to join the chat. She's been, fighting the good fight and all that. I mean, we've all been working, but
smashing glasses and steaming up my spectacles whilst opening the glass washer. So yeah.
I'm sure people have their masks on.
No, in terms of that, I think the thing is, like,
every day,
like, our jobs, we can be on those group chats. Like, your job, you can. So it's not to take away from anyone else's job.
That's not something that I am. I'm not upset about the fact that I work weekends, because that is today is obviously a different kind of work jaunt. But no, I'm not upset about that, because it's a job that I chose, and it's a job in an industry that I care about and that I love, and everyone in our company and everyone else I know in the beer industry feels the same way. It's like, brewing is, as a non-brewer myself, it's not easy. It's not an easy job. Working in the craft beer industry, it's an insanely competitive market to work in, and it's difficult, and especially in the last 18 months, the amount of chops and changes that are thrown at you consistently to adapt more than you ever would have expected you'd need to. And more quickly as well. It's not easy. People don't do it because it's, like, a lot of the time there's an outside perception that, all you do is sit around and talk about tattoos and get drunk. And I'm like, okay, like, sure, we do that a lot. But
yes, it happens.
It happens. But no, people don't get into it for an easy ride along. Anyone who thinks that, it's a complete misconception, because people get into it because they want to add to what is a really, really vibrant, thriving industry and be part of it. And it's not easy, but it's so worth it.
But I think the thing is I think that community that we've managed to build, so, like, pubs shut down, and that's it. You're not going out. That's that. And then it's like, we had these Zoom chats, but then it goes I think it almost goes beyond, like, virtual pub Zoom chats, because the pub, like, it begs that question of, like, what is a pub? Like, for me, a pub isn't just a place that you go to. It's not just an online Zoom chat. It's now become, in a digital age, to be fair, we live in a digital age now, it's now become Facebook groups, Discord channels. Like, would you say that the side chat that we had on the Discord page for the International Women's Day is any less of a pub experience? Where it's not the same. You can't I don't think you can ever replicate it one-to-one of, like, the banter in the background and all that stuff. Like, trains, you're not going to get the trains going over, as you've just heard, people watching, like,
the
that
person who walks past wearing a really, really cool t-shirt slogan, and you think, oh my god, I really want to ask them where they got it. Like,
exactly. Or what are they drinking, what are they eating? Like, that's the kind of stuff that you can't necessarily replicate. However,
in a virtual sense, no.
The conversations that you have, it's not just limited even to Zoom chats. It's, I've had had those connections made in Women's Pint Club on the Facebook page, on the Zoom chats, on the side Discord chats that we've had, on Instagram. So I know for a fact that both of you guys have done a virtual pub experience in some capacity, outside of, well, either inside or outside Women's Pint Club. But I guess I know for a fact that we've done I think I went on one hoppy place with you.
Yeah, one or two.
And there were some tastings, there was some quizzes that happened that we all did, and then we had the Women's Pint Club. Were there any other ones that you guys knew about? Like before COVID, did you guys have any experience with virtual pub sessions before, or since lockdown was that when the need came out?
It's not been something that that I had seen much of prior to COVID. Like, for example, if there was say a big beer launch by a brewery, say like for example if a brewery like Omnipollo, whose beers are really popular, and like they did a live tasting like from the Church of Omnipollo, they did that post-COVID, and they actually had like a chat with they had a chat with the team, the people involved, all of that. I mean, there have been times prior to COVID that I've seen like a big beer release by, say, a brewery the size of Omnipollo that gets released at the same time, a load of different bars, and there might maybe be like a 10-minute live on Instagram or something like that, but nothing like, there was never really an organised live stream, or not that I had seen anyway, with like never really an organised live stream with a chat function or with like Q&A or anything like that. There were never any really like virtual meet the brewers or tasting sessions or anything like that, because people could
You could go there, couldn't you?
You go to the pub.
Get a brewery tour, you could have a chat, you could taste the beer. Yeah, you go in the tap room.
So I do think that maybe this will force a lot of breweries to be more thoughtful in the way that they market their events. So not only in making it available to the people who can queue for 2 hours outside and pay a load of money to be there on site, but additionally for people who maybe just want to buy the beers to take home and participate online. Like, I think there is an issue to that as well. Just some people can't afford to go out, or maybe they can't afford to get childcare, or whatever. Like, they can't be going out to get in public transport halfway across London or whatever to go to a bar event. They can't whatever. Like, it's we're all in all honesty, like, it is much safer to do these things virtually. Like, especially there are so many concerns about when there's alcohol involved, and people you might lose some of your belongings. No, but you lose your inhibitions, or you lose the ability perhaps to think clearly, and it means that it might make it will make it less safe for you to get yourself home and take care of yourself and things like that. Might be at risk of other people who might mistreat or use you in public transport, things like this. These are all very real concerns of people, especially lone travellers, especially women, who go to events, go to tap takeovers and festivals and things like that. So for that sense, I think virtual events are a fantastic idea, and if they die out after COVID, if in 2 years' time, when this, I'm going to touch wood right now, if in 2 years' time, when this genuinely is behind us, if virtual events have died down, I'll be really disappointed, because it's not always an option. So if there's a brewery in bloody York, I can't easily or affordably get a train up to York to go to this event.
Well, I think
if there's a virtual thing, I will absolutely buy the beers.
I think that's what we said.
To my house.
It's beyond the idea of I want to do it because of the safety aspects or anything else like that. Like, people nowadays are you just don't have time. Everyone works so hard and such long hours. It's just, you just don't have time. And I think that's the thing. It's like we've discussed with other people when we recorded other episodes and on our Brewdog collab festival, all that stuff. We were like, you know what? The digital events are really well for us when we work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and something's being held at 7 o'clock on a Thursday. And it's like, I feasibly cannot get there, without taking time off work and get back, and then I've got to get up the next morning. If I can just do it from my house, like, to me, that is
removes so many of the problems.
It removes barriers, and that's going to be more.
It breaks rules completely.
So I think integrating in-person and virtual events it needs to be the way forward.
Yeah. I think it should be a given now that not only are events physically accessible, but also they're accessible for people who just can't make it to you, so that people don't feel like they're missing out by not being able to, go to a random location at the drop of a hat, spend a lot of money before they even get to the event. To spend £60 on a train ticket and
before they
travel
even get
lodge
there.
and blah, 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 blah.
Totally get it.
And I think that, and that's even before you get to the event and the event ticket prices itself. I think that if anyone wants to be fully inclusive, they need to consider the fact that
social anxieties as well. That's the thing. Social anxiety.
Not everybody.
Some people have very socially anxiety, and they're like, or you go, I don't really have friends that like beer, so therefore I'm afraid to go
to a place by themselves, and that's completely reasonable.
I don't have friends that like craft beer, therefore I'm a bit more anxious. Like, totally get that.
And it's completely reasonable and completely valid, and I think that's something we should pay attention to.
Yeah. So last thoughts. This is literally the last question of all the questions, right? If you had to pick one event, physical or digital, which one would it be and why? Round robin. Lou. You could only go, like, if you had to pick an event, physical event or digital event.
Oh, okay.
To cheat, you can say both, but you have to justify why you would say both, and it has to be a good justification.
Well, my thing, especially as an events person, as someone who organises them and also someone who visits them, is I would say I always prefer going to a physical event. I always do. I always prefer to going to something in person.
Why?
Because I love face-to-face interactions with people.
Fair.
And also I love people watching.
Fair.
I love being able to, I find that it's easier to bounce off of another person and, read the room a bit easier when you're literally sat across from someone as opposed to when you're over Zoom. But in that physical event, I would always want there to be an option for a virtual something. So a lot of events, say, have a Meet the Brewer attached, like I said, or, like a brewery tour attached, and I would want there to be a live virtual option, like a live stream of a brewery tour or a live stream of a Meet the Brewer with a Q&A or something for people who would be able to attend. Because I do think these, and obviously I personally prefer going back. I can't wait to go back to things in person. I can't wait to go back to beer festivals. But I cannot,
But if it was at the cost of cutting, or if you had to do one, you're going to cut all physical events or all digital events.
Oh my God, why are you doing this? You originally said we do both.
But I just said you could say both, but you have to justify why.
What I could say they could cut both. I don't want them to cut both.
No, you could keep both, but why would you want them to keep
Because
both?
I don't think it would be fair to anyone to exclude one or the other. That's
I'm
my
a
truth.
horrible person, and I'm like,
I don't think it would be fair to
I am
anyone.
like Thanos. No, one has to go.
I don't think it'd be fair to anyone to exclude one or the other. I think that both can coexist, and all it requires is, I think most of the medium-sized and small breweries and companies are aware of this and are already putting together things that are virtual tastings, Q&As, live chats and so on. And I think it's some of the bigger festival companies perhaps that need to get on board with the fact that both can coexist. Or bigger event companies and so on.
They just don't get it.
I think there is a lack of understanding for the fact that there is a huge market in virtual events. I'm not being funny, as I said, prior to COVID, if someone had said, hey, there's a live Q&A for On Apollo, when the hell am I going to get over to Sweden? I can't go over there on a whim, you know what I mean? If someone said there's a virtual tasting with On Apollo and it's oh, here's the box, it will cost you 40 quid and there's a live Q&A, I'd be like, cool, count me in. And I think there is a huge market there for people who just cannot get to somewhere for whatever reason, and I think that is something that should be looked into.
If you would like to know more about the Women on Tap Festival, connect with Tori and Joe, or listen to more episodes of A Woman's Brew, check out the show notes for links. And thank you to all the women who made this podcast possible.